Hello, and welcome to the writer's journey. Human editors are worth their weight in gold, but if you send in a rough manuscript draft, there's only so much scrubbing that can be done, and your editor just might cut you for it. Enter editing tools, software designed to help you polish your prose and clean up your copy before you send it to an editor. The end result is an even stronger, more sparkling story. Join us to dig deep on how authors and editors can use an editing tool with our special guest, Ivy Gray, Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at WordRake. Ivy, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
And Rick Partlow, technically we were the first to post in the live chat, but Rick Partlow, Golf Cop of Appreciation, thank you for being here. Corey Gilliam, we've got people trickling in. Welcome. This is not an April Fool's joke, y'all. We are really here. We are really live. And we are really right now. And really quick, because I'm super excited about it, and you can't see it in this orientation. So for our live viewers, kaboom! I'm super excited about my kaboom. I just really wanted to show everybody my kaboom. Anyway,
wow, that was amazing.
I love it.
All right, so how's everyone doing? How's the week's been since we're on this double week, every other weekness with our shows now?
Well, I'm glad it's Friday.
Maybe.
Finally, Friday, and it's April Fool's. No joke, guys. We are here today. I did get pranked on my way into the gym. A couple of my friends who were sitting on their treadmill bike thingies, they're in like their 70s. I respect them and love them, look up to them so much. They're like, did you get that letter in the mail from the gym? And I'm like, what letter? Like, the one that said they're going to have to close down. Maybe it's something about like not enough people. And my heart just like dropped to my feet because I love this gym so much. I love the people there. And I'm like, no, where can I go? I have no idea. And they're like, April Fools.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my daughter to lay in some April Fool's jokes. She's been so excited. She's been trying to get me, as it were. What about you, Ivy? What have you been up to in your world of worldness?
Editing things. That's really it.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that in my heart space and my soul.
So I primarily work with editors right now, or with lawyers who are editors right now. And there was a great April Fool's prank going around about this company shutting down, and they weren't going to teach lawyers to do any more editing or major legal things. Instead, they were going to teach them to stop replying all. And it was going to be a 5-hour course on not replying all. And I just thought it was perfect.
Man, does it have to be a prank? Could that be a real thing?
I know. I knew he was being sarcastic, but I would have welcomed that.
Yes, we could use that training.
All right. So jumping right in. Oh, I guess me. What have I been up to? I always try to skip over me. I'm really good at that. I'm trying to get better though, because apparently people like to hear.
The honesty comes out. This is the relatable content we are here for. We are here for you, Kalene.
So I never treat myself. So again, because it's awesome. Kaboom. Because it's like, boom. I don't know. I just love it. It reminds me, I had a whole segue into it. It reminds me when I was younger, I really wanted to get into doing comic books. And I even had like a little web series that I did with my boyfriend at the time. God, that was so long ago. Anyway, my daughter is now wanting to do a webtoon, and she's been doing her outline rough draft for her little webtoon thing. And once she gets that done, we're going to go into storyboarding, and she's figuring out, where she can have the pictures and what the background's going to look like and all the little story pieces and the arcs. So we've been going through that. That's been my exciting time the last couple weeks. So.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Back in my glory days, I loved collecting comic books. So that's really exciting. But I never really could draw anything other than horses and feet. And I couldn't come up with a story that involved horses or feet.
No, I'm sure it's out there. I don't know if you want to get into the dungeon as it were. All right. So jumping right in, why might authors be interested in editing tools and editing tools that are out there? WordRake obviously being one.
WordRake? Yes. So it's really hard to see what you've written, and editing tools will give you that objective eye. And it helps you get over that curse of knowledge. You know what you meant to say, but it's hard to really see what you've actually said. So editing tools will help you get over that hump. And then, just in terms of dollars and cents, a tool like WordRake is only $129 for the year. And if you use a tool like WordRake to help you get through that initial edit before you hire an editor, then you're going to get far better, deeper, more valuable feedback from your editor, because they're not going to spend the time doing a lot of those baseline things to get you up to speed. Another tool that I like to use and that I also work on is called Perfectit. And it does consistency checking and proofreading for you. It will help you enforce your style guide. So if you're, a CMOS person, it will help you get up to those standards. If you have created your own worlds and you have, lots of names that are spelled oddly, or that just aren't even words, so they get to be spelled however, and sometimes there's an H and sometimes there's not, and sometimes it's an E and sometimes it's 3 E's, or what have you. You can actually create style guides to enforce that sort of consistent spelling of your made-up names or places. So if you use tools like WordRake and Perfectit together, then you're going to get a much better manuscript, and your editor is going to spend less time checking those things.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
And you want your editor to spend time checking the high value stuff, spotting plot holes and sentences that don't make the most sense or that are supposed to leave you thinking at the end of a chapter, but instead just leave you scratching your head in confusion. An editor will help you get over that hump, but they won't see that if you are, if you're just submitting really bad low-level text.
Right. And it sounds like tools like WordRake that are helping me pick the right word that's like accurate could also help me with my emails, perhaps. Does it have other uses outside of Word, just so that my communication kind of comes across clearly?
Absolutely. So WordRake works in Microsoft Word and in Microsoft Outlook. And so you can edit all of your emails. And most people, they use email for their business writing, to communicate with their editors, to talk with publishers or other media people. And that communication is high value. Yet no one would think to hire an editor to edit their emails. And no one would think to ask a friend to read over their emails. They just type away and send it off and hope it's all right. And it doesn't help you at all. You don't get your message across. And that's just, a wasted communication, or could be a wasted communication. And WordRake will help you clarify and simplify those messages so that the recipient knows what to do next and confidently takes that next step.
Yeah, being an editor, I write an email that should probably only take me 2 minutes, but it ends up taking me 10 minutes because I'm editing my own edit. Yeah,
we can't turn it off.
I can't. I really can't. It's hard. It's hard too.
Well, and there's so much pressure. You know that people are going to spot a typo, or a subject pronoun used as an object pronoun or something, and they're going to ream you for it and say, shouldn't you know better? So yeah.
I am but human, which bringing up on a post in our Facebook group about editing tools, because this is something that me and Lauren definitely, it gives editing tools a bad rap. The common response is, they love them because they make their life easier, but they also hate them because they messed up the manuscript. So, how can editing tools help? In what ways can they mess up your writing? And what can we do to kind of mitigate those issues? Because at the end of the day, you've got to be smarter than the tool.
Right. So a couple of things are happening there. First, a lot of times the software makers use tools or use the names of different editing functions in incorrect ways. So they will tell you that they're selling you a proofreading tool when really what they're selling you is an editing tool. And those functions are different, and you're going to be disappointed if you buy one and get the other, or run one expecting a different type of feedback. So vendors or any technologist can definitely improve on that side. And then understanding the breadth and depth of the edits, or whatever it is that your tool is supposed to be doing, will also help you set expectations, and manage your workflow. So some organizations are happy just to check the box, and so you have a really good features matrix where everything is checked and you feel great about it. And then you start using the tool and you find out that they said they checked for passive voice, but they really only check for passive sentences. And that's not helpful. So knowing what you're getting into, I think, will be helpful there. Finally, you should know how to use Word properly, because if you're using a Word add-in, then the add-in is relying on what Word understands as a sentence, what Word reads as punctuation and space, etc. And if you're kind of ham-fisting your way through Word, then anything else that you layer on that is also going to give you inconsistent results. So simply hating Word and blaming somebody else isn't going to help. You should get your baseline understanding up. After that, if you have a tool that you can customize, say like Perfect It, where you can create your own style sheet, then you should customize it and get what you want out of it. If you've got a tool like WordRake, which doesn't have a customized style sheet yet, though we do hope to have it in the future, you should understand what it's doing, and you should also be sure to stay involved. Your editing tools are collaborators. So when you have the choice to check things one by one, you should still check things one by one. Don't go around hitting accept all, especially if it's the first time you've worked on this manuscript or first time that you have used the tool. So those are all really simple things that should be obvious, but when you're in a rush, people tend not to do that. I hope that answered the question that you were hoping to get asked or get answered.
No, it does. Yeah. Because like especially with Perfected, I know we're definitely want to stay more on WordRake, but like with Perfected specifically, there's one of the manuscripts I was working on, the character's name was like Bolt or Dash or something like that. So sometimes it needed to be capitalized because that was the character's name, but sometimes it didn't because the character dashed through, and then Perfected's like, you know, should this be capitalized? Because it's 387 times capitalized and only 187 not. And I'm like, nope. So yeah, it can be tedious, but going through it is definitely worth the time.
Definitely. Sure. Well, on that note, WordRake works differently from Perfected. So even though the two are complementary tools and I've worked on both, they approach editing in a different way. So WordRake actually, it is context driven and it's algorithmic. And what it looks at is it categorizes your words as parts of speech and then uses those parts of speech to determine what type of editing feedback you would need. So with a character named Dash, if it's written with a capital D and you've got spaces or punctuation on either side, then it's going to see that as a proper noun, and it's going to function as a proper noun when WordRake gives you editing suggestions. And it's not going to confuse that with the verb dashed, even though dash could be both a noun and a verb, depending on the context. So we're always looking for those context cues, and it's just so smart. The edits that you get from WordRake feel really human.
And so Patricia, she says, I've seen situations with a character named Will and replace some other name, and all the other uses of Will get changed along with it. Oh no.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely got to be careful. Careful with that accept all.
Absolutely. Another thing that you can do to try to capture that is use found and replace with wildcards. And you can look for things where you've got an article or an indefinite article ahead of the word, and that is more likely to be the generic noun versus the name will versus a will. So understanding how words function makes you a better editor, but it's really hard to step back and get what you want when you have a hard time assessing why it is that you're not getting it in the first place.
So I, in my former life, was an English teacher. So you say parts of speech and I'm lit up. I'm so excited about parts of speech. And I can see how learning about what a word is and what a word does will really help my clients become stronger writers and to figure out why exactly this punctuation is needed here or not needed here. Like once they understand it, they'll be able to fix that problem moving forward. It won't be a problem anymore. However, other people have different backgrounds and they're like, parts of speech, oh no, I never got that in English class. And They're like, oh, let's stay far away. Do you confront that? Do you meet that with your customers, and how do you get them beyond that?
So I find that actually the more pedantic people who think that they're grammarians and they call themselves snoots, they tend to be worse, and they follow these myths that aren't actually rules. And I find that I actually have to worry about those people much more than the people who simply just don't know. So that's a little bit different. Also, WordRake doesn't require you to actually know what the parts of speech are. We can tell by what you've written what part of speech you intend. And you can also send us bad edits where if we got it wrong, you can tell us, you got it wrong for this reason, and then we can actually fix it. So
makes the algorithm better.
Yes,
we are always learning, and there are humans at the other end of that. Where it's not just machine learning. It's actual human linguists who I'm also working with, teaching the program to be better, and we refine it every day.
Well, let's get into WordRake. Let's take a look and see what's there.
All right, so so I have a couple of notes about what WordRake does, or do you want to just look at the demo first? What's better for you?
Demo sounds fun.
Okay.
And for those on our podcast side, we will try to describe a little bit about what we're seeing, so you can definitely get the vibe and the juice of the excellent visual, and you should just come watch us live and not miss it.
All right. So I'm assuming you can see my screens because that worked when we tested it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So WordRake works right from the ribbon, and just like you would choose to run spell check or anything, you grab it from the ribbon, WordRake tab, click the rake button, and it ripples through your document, making suggested changes in the familiar track changes form. I love this because track changes is what we use to communicate back and forth when you're in any sort of sophisticated editing situation. So once WordRake has raked your document, you saw how fast that went. It will tell you that it's finished raking your document, and it'll give you this little dialog box, which tells you how many suggestions you have. I like to use that to estimate how long it will take me to get through this document to review each of the suggestions. So you click OK to get started. If you hate this box and you just want to jump right in, you can click Don't Show That again. But we're not going to, get on that too much. So
I love this.
It's like an already edited document.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
I love that.
So we're looking at a Word doc that has all the common things editors look for and fix. And that, as an English teacher, I taught my students, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And it's just listing all of them with examples and then showing you how WordRake fixes each of these examples.
Right.
Wow.
So this document is set up this way for demonstration purposes. When you actually run WordRake on your own document, it will not split it up like this and give you all of your redundancies in one spot. It will edit in place just like any editor would. But this helps you to see what you're getting. And I like to use the navigation pane to give people a better overview of the types of edits that we do. And when you're looking at the edits just like this, you're like, oh, that's great, but I don't really understand how all of these things hang together. And we have one overarching theme. And that theme to our edits is any word not contributing to meaning is taking away from it. So we try to get rid of those words that are cluttering your sentences and detracting from what you want to say. So those words fall into 4 categories: unnecessary words, high-level grammar mistakes, words that bog down your writing, and then legalese and jargon. So that's what you're going to see in these different sections. If you, just like you would with track changes, if you like something, you accept and go to next. If you don't like something, you can reject and go to next. If you think you like something but you don't know what it's going to look like, you can click accept. If you change your mind, you can undo. So all of those Microsoft functionalities are still available. If you are somebody who doesn't want to use these buttons and you're one of those like really fast editors and you do everything with mouse gestures, you can set up hotkeys and use all of your mouse gestures here, which is pretty cool. It also takes advantage of any sort of accessibility features that Microsoft Office has built in. So if you need to use accessibility features, all of that is available through WordRake, just like you would have it available through Microsoft Office, which I love. If you see something, you're like, clearly these are great edits, so I like all of them, you can accept a whole bunch at once. Obviously, you can read them all, but you can accept and stay. And just make sure that you like what you're getting. So over the course of showing you the functionality, I skipped over some edits that I just really like. Here we got rid of short before summary. And it's one of those things where if you think about it, well, obviously if it's a summary, it's short. Your summary shouldn't be any longer than what you
just say the same thing twice.
Exactly. So it's a redundancy, and we'll catch that for you. If you wrote it, or if that's just your writing tick, then you're never going to spot that, and WordRake will spot that for you. Another thing is that if you are 50 pages in, you're going to stop noticing these sorts of things, but your reader will still notice them. So WordRake will help give you that consistent, objective eye, no matter how late it is or how long your document is. Another thing that I like to point out, because legal writing is one of those areas where it's just super hard to get this right, is here we got rid of sworn before testimony, and that's a definitional thing. No other tool is really going to understand that sworn testimony is redundant, but it's not testimony if it's not sworn. That is the definition of testimony. And we actually take that sort of nuance into account when we are working on our editing rules and editing suggestions. So throat clearing, these are all of the things that bog down the sentence before you get to the meat of it. So here I can undo them. We have a bunch of words leading up to Chelsea Incorporated is a shell corporation. Well, we don't need the there should be no doubt that is just throat clearing. It adds literally nothing. Same with despite the undeniable fact, and we change it to although. And that's one of the ways that you can tell the sophistication of WordRake's editing software. Here, let me close that so you can actually get the rest of this stuff. If you have a simple matching tool, the edit that you would get here would simply be that this part of the sentence would be cut off, and it would just say the court would rule in the defendant's favor. And that loses the key turning point of although. And we need that signal to show you that we're changing direction in our thoughts. And you wouldn't get that in a simple find and replace sort of tool, because you would just be looking for deleting this part of the sentence.
That's really cool. You're not only finding the things and crossing them out, like just get rid of this. You're giving suggestions on how to replace it if it can be replaced or needs to be replaced. And
yes,
I've not seen that before, so that is really cool.
That's getting close to like human level.
That is
AI suggestions.
Going for my job. No, I'm kidding.
Well, our goal is to make our edits feel human and to be a collaborator with any writer. And we'll never replace human editors, but just imagine the job that a human editor can do once these edits are out of the way.
Right.
So that's what I love about it. So with, say, general wordiness, we're practically allergic to the word that. So we take it out as much as we can. However,
yes, you're already my favorite.
Thank you. However, some tools will be overly aggressive with removing the word that. And that's where having linguists on staff will make a difference in your editing tool. It's not crowdsourced. We actually have real people thinking about the edits that we make. And sometimes you need to keep that, because that is functioning as a pronoun. And if you remove that reference, then your sentence isn't going to make sense anymore. And we think about that. It's a lot of nuance that goes into our editing tools that you're not going to find in other places. Anyway, I like all of these. I think I've hammered that detail enough, and you can move on. Needless modifiers. These are some of my favorites. Very empty. Either it is or it isn't. You can't be sort of empty. There's no halfway point on that. It's a binary. And then same with previously ruled. Here, it's more contextual. It's really easy to create a list that would catch these things, like modifying anything with empty. You have some wildcards, you have empty, or your list of absolutes, and you cross out anything before them. But this is much harder because you actually need to recognize that previously is a modifier that is basically doubling down on this past tense verb. And that is a nuanced edit that you aren't going to get in other places. How are you feeling about this? Is this too much? Do you want other information?
No, this is good.
I mean,
yeah, no. I while you're talking, I'm thinking, man, we should get her back on just to talk about editing, like editing a document sometime, because we're getting into editing right now. What it takes to be a good editor.
I'm like, yes, that's
Keep
a
going.
I would make. Yes,
Preach.
Yes. And then with all those changes made, then I get this nice clean document, and I can be like, ooh, I can get into nitty gritty. You know, it's like, you know, where are things getting repetitive and
yes.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's where you can really get into varying word choice and having more impactful statements. And when we were chatting before we started recording, I was talking about how, you know, the last sentence in a chapter might be the big takeaway. It's the big reveal. It's the point that you want to make with your book to get people thinking. It is the pièce de résistance. And then the writer just muddles something out, or it's just like dribbled out, and it's weak. And this is supposed to be the thing that resonates, that makes people want to buy your book, the thing that you wish would be blurbed on the back of your book and that people would talk about, and Oprah will reference once she sees that you're such a great author and now you're in her book club. That's the sentence that she's like, oh, this got me. And you can't mess that up. And once you get these sorts of things out of the way, your editor can actually help you write that sentence with impact. And I love it, because that is what you want your editors to do. And instead of wasting your money on this, you get your editors to do the high impact stuff.
Yeah.
So I clearly love editors.
We love being loved.
Yay!
It's nice being appreciated.
So
for slaughtering your work.
No, we need you. So before I actually became a lawyer, who then started writing software for lawyers and other sophisticated writers, I was a journalist, and I care deeply about words and what they mean, and making sure that you get as much bang for your buck in as few words as possible. So it was a natural fit to come to WordRake, but it instilled in me a love of editors that is you're gods to me. So I just thank you for existing.
Well, we're happy you exist. So what else? Edits that live in writing.
Yes, edits that in live in writing. So there's a lot of sentence constructions that bog down your writing, slow it down, and make the reader want to fall asleep before they get to the end. And these are the sort of edits that will speed up your writing and improve the pace and flow. And it's really just changing a few words, and it makes a huge difference. So here, this is clearly a scientific type sentence where the freezing temperature has a direct impact on the hydraulic arm's travel distance. All right, I've already fallen asleep. But if you just say the freezing temperature directly affects the hydraulic arm's travel distance, well, now I understand. And if somebody is working and needs to understand that they should change the distance or the calculations because they're working in, sub-zero conditions, then they'll actually understand that, versus if you use something like has a direct impact. They pay attention through the whole thing, and they get to focus on the right thing.
I call that tightening.
Yes.
I made this change because it was lagging here in the middle, and these 7 words got changed to 1 or 2, and now it's punchier. It gets us to the next line. We didn't need all that bog.
Yes. We say that we tighten and brighten writing, but unless you already love words, no one knows what that means. So here so essentially what we're doing is we are changing things that are nouns to verbs. A lot of times that will be called nominalization. So here's a typical nominalization: constitutes a violation of. Violation is a noun, you're changing it to a verb with violates the lease. And now you get
It's so much tighter.
Yeah.
that beautiful short little sentence. I love it.
Take a whole phrase out, one word verb. It's beautiful.
Yes, still makes sense. We didn't just cut it.
Mm.
Using verbs instead of adjective phrases is reflective of. A lot of times people will see this and they'll just think passive, and they don't fully understand all of the things that go into that bucket. And we actually break it down. So you have your adjective phrases, you have your adverbial phrases, participial phrases, etc. And we treat them differently because we know that you can't just replace things indiscriminately. And again, getting way deep in the weeds, you don't have to know this to use WordRake, but we have to know this to make WordRake. And I love it. So is reflective of, again, so exciting, reflects. How fast was that?
Quick.
So much tighter.
Was dismissive of, click, so short. Is dependent upon. I mean, and people, their writing style is like this, so they're never going to see this.
This is like every single manuscript I edit. So every author out there listening right now, this is one of the large things that makes a lot of your writing all sound the same. If I didn't know your story belonged to you and I read a passage, I wouldn't know whose was who because it just all sounds the same. It's all
right.
Yeah. Anyway,
because when you're busy creating, the words are just flowing.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily thinking about how the words sound. You're just trying to get them out.
Absolutely.
But then you finish your draft, you read through it again, maybe read it out loud, and still your eyes can kind of skip over stuff. But a software editing program like this can help those things come to the front, and then you can decide.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think has happened in recent education is that people have become afraid of saying things directly. They want to soften their language, and they're putting a lot of distance between the actor and the action. They're putting distance between themselves and their ideas. And by using WordRake, you take ownership of these ideas. Your actors take ownership of their actions, and everything is punchy and makes sense. I mean, look how amazing that is.
It's much more clear when you're direct and active in your speech instead of passive, and adding in the fluffy words to kind of soften what you're trying to say.
Right. And, sometimes you need to soften it. If you're trying to escape accountability, then mistakes were made. But if you want to make somebody accountable, then you need to say it in a more direct manner, and we'll help you do that. So legalese and jargon is one of the places where we excel. And I know that this audience is mostly authors, but I still want to point this out. Lawyers don't have to write in the way that they do. And there's so much that lawyers say and that you'll read in business documents that might make you feel like you don't know. But trust me, you're an intelligent person. You do know. Lawyers are just writing in this convoluted way for no good reason. And WordRake will help you to get rid of those tools or of those extra words and turn it into something that's understandable. So I even will recommend to people that if you're reading terms and conditions on a website, or you're getting ready to sign an agreement with somebody and you don't fully understand it, you could copy and paste it into Word and rake it and see if that makes it clearer to you. Because with pursuant to versus under, if a regular person reading pursuant to, they'll see that and they think that it's got to mean something different. And it means the same thing as under. You understand what these words mean. You have the tools to do this. Get empowered. Don't let other people tell you that these things are necessary and use them to hide information from you. So I like this. It makes me feel good about writing. And when I was practicing law still, I wanted my clients to know what they were getting and take action on the contracts or whatever that they had. They paid me to help them to solve a problem, and it wasn't solved if they couldn't go about their business doing their thing without me holding their hand. I want them to be able to live and make decisions on their own. And clear writing does that. So love plain language and love getting rid of jargon, and WordRake will help with that too.
Yeah, Ken says he uses WordRake on his correspondence and emails. Jargon seeps into correspondence that doesn't belong. Totally agree with Ivy on this.
Yay! So a couple of things that I will point out before I stop sharing my screen. If you get an edit that you don't like, you can just report the bad edit. And you can, and we just ask for a screenshot. You can get rid of things if you need to cover them up and make sure that we don't see your client's name or some other confidential information, and you can just show us the edit in space or in place. And a real linguist, a real person is on the other end of that report bad edit button. So that's helpful. We also want to make sure that we never duplicate what Microsoft is already doing. Instead, we want you to use those tools. And we understand that switching back and forth between tabs will sort of make your life harder, and you'll forget to use some of the tools. So we have brought Microsoft's built-in tools to the forefront, and we've even made it easier to access some of Microsoft's functionality. So these are all features that I created and even buttons that I drew. So that was fun. So for instance, grammar settings. This would normally be 7 clicks away, and we've put it on the button on the ribbon. And so Microsoft Editor just keeps adding some pretty cool things, but you won't know what they are. And if you don't like them, you won't be able to change them or turn them off. It's super hidden. It's really deep in your proofing settings. And we've brought it up to the forefront and put it right on this ribbon so that you can get the editing advice that you want without getting the editing advice that you don't want. Same with spelling and grammar, word count, etc. The last thing that we did was we added a check complexity button. And this takes Microsoft's readability feature and makes it a little bit more usable. I need to take a sip of water, sorry.
Go for it.
You're good.
So we give it context. So this is what you'd normally get the average sentences per paragraph, etc., and all of this that feeds into these reading scores. But Microsoft spits out something that says like 47, 10, 3, and you're like, out of what?
Some context here.
Yeah, out of what, and is that good? So we've added these line graphs to help you understand what it's actually out of. If you hover, you're going to see what the best score is and what's actually being tested here, so you can get more value from that. And we also give you context here. And then this little bar, the color-coded bar, is tagged to sophisticated writers. So we're not telling you that you're supposed to write at a 6th grade level, but we are trying to help you see where you can become a better, clearer, more direct writer. And I love this. The other thing that's nice about harnessing the functionality of Word, but putting a different face on it, is that by putting it on the ribbon here, you don't actually have to wait until you've run spell check to get these complexity scores. You can get them right away. And I find that a lot of people don't like to use the complexity and readability scores in Word because when you have them running automatically at the end of your spell check, Microsoft will often hang, and then you'll have to force shutdown and you won't be able to recover your document. So you were trying to do a good thing and it all went to hell. We recognize that can happen, which is part of the reason why we actually have this interstitial notification box prompting you to remember to save, but removing it from or separating it out from the spell check function makes it a lot easier and more reliable. So there we are. Yeah, I think about Word far too much. But if you're going to make a tool that works in Word, then you're going to want to fully understand it. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to you. All right. Do you have other questions? Would you like me to show some of the other notes that I made on PowerPoint to drive some of the points home, or what can I do for you?
Yeah,
we do. I'm gonna spotlight real quick. We have a very special spotlight this week, and then we are going to get into some audience questions.
Okay.
And definitely that other PowerPoint that you had set up for us.
Cool.
All right. And this week's spotlight is on, drumroll please, you guessed it, WordRake. And yes, I did take this directly from the website. Did my own little editing so it actually makes sense, because they don't have the cool pictures that they had to go with it. All right, their mission is to help professionals write clearly and concisely. Imagine if everyone who read your writing understood and embraced your message. That's possible with WordRake. Communicate clearly with sophisticated clients, inquisitive readers, and the general public. No matter your audience, WordRake will help you to tighten in tone, edit for clarity and brevity with one click, communicate clearly, cut the clutter that complicates your message, engage audiences. Streamlined writing persuades and delights readers. WordRake software can make any document or email clearer, shorter, and better. WordRake's guiding principle: every word not conveying meaning detracts from every word trying to convey meaning. When you remove the unnecessary words, you allow the others to capture your reader. It's automated inline editing software for professionals, and it's available for Mac or Windows. Get WordRake today, or doom.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you so much for that, Kalene.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of ecstatic for this WordRake because I could put that in my own books because I'm an author too. I write my own stuff, and just because I'm an editor doesn't mean I can go back in and be like, yes, I'm going to find all these confusing sentences that I know I've written. No, I've written them. I'm not going to be able to find them very well. So WordRake, I could definitely see being something that I can use. And then before I shoot it over to Lauren or Ellen, I'm already going to get way more out of them than I would have previously. So
absolutely. And did we mention that you can also rake your emails?
Yes,
on
your emails.
Microsoft Outlook.
In Microsoft Outlook. So I know that we talked about it before we started recording, but I couldn't remember if we talked about it before we started recording.
Oh, that's true.
So I'll give a little plug there. Your emails are important. They're the way that you communicate with important people and in communicate your important messages. And you'd never stop to ask a friend to edit those things or send that to an editor. But with WordRake, you get the value of that editing before you click the send button.
Yeah, because I've heard so many people from different companies say, oh, the young people these days, they can't write, they can't string words together in a sentence. Their emails make no sense. Okay, with a little help, maybe they could, and we could all learn and maybe communicate better. Yeah, I love it.
I love it. It makes me happy, and I rake everything that I write. And I am absolutely loving all of the comments. What a great group you've got.
I know they are the best. Y'all can't see me right now because my camera died, but I'm making a heart with my fingers. Yeah. We love you. We love you, audience, and we love you, keystrokers, my strokers, the peeps.
Now, our audience does write a lot, and one question that came up before was some of us write like 100,000 word manuscripts or longer.
Or 250,000, like the one I'm doing now.
That I've seen that crash different editing software programs. How does WordRake do that? And if there is crashing or problems, what can we do about it to mitigate that issue?
So we can do hundreds of pages at once without any problem. We're super fast. You should expect WordRake to edit something like, it takes less than a minute to edit 25 to 50 pages. So getting up to 200 pages is really no problem. It is the footprint of WordRake is really small. It's only it's like less than 100 megabytes, and it runs really fast. However, if your computer is really old and slow, and it's bogged down, you're running a million things, then it will be slower. So that's just how things go if you're running a lot of things. But WordRake on its own is lightning fast and super reliable. It's not going to shut down your computer or hold you up, etc. If you are editing thousands of pages at once, I would break that up into 100-page chunks so that it'll be a little bit better. And if you have your own checklist of consistency things that you want to do to make sure that you always accept getting rid of that in certain situations, or always accept this, or always reject this other thing, then it's going to be easier to actually enforce those changes if you are using a smaller subset of your document.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I do want to reiterate the computer that you are using is also a tool. So, 4 years ago, the computer I was using was still really slow. It was an older model. I'm trying to do these documents and they're only like 50,000 words and it's bogging me down. Things are crashing. So I invested in a new computer. Now I can do 250,000 words, no problem. So definitely the tools don't stop at the programs or the apps. It definitely does start at your hardware. So make sure, if you can, there's places that you can go where they're refurbished and they're still really fantastic. Talk to the people, tell them what you want. I mean, you could get a gaming laptop and you're like, well, all I'm going to do is writing on it, but you have all these word tools and WordRakes and Perfectits that are going to be, sending your machine through, editing ecstasy. So you're going to want that gaming awesomeness to handle it all.
You're going to need some decent RAM and yours a good solid state drive. And now that they're trying to make laptops so thin and light, you are getting less and less of that as you upgrade. Each year, less seems to be available. But it's not that hard to buy a larger SSD online and pop out what you have and replace it. Ooh. So when I first got my Dell XPS 13, the maximum gigs that I could get was something like 32. And I popped it out and switched it to a 500 gig, and now I've got a terabyte.
There you go.
And it makes it so easy to do that and to get more power from your computer. You don't have to necessarily buy a new one. And if you're not great at computers yourself, you can still buy the solid state hard drive on Amazon or something. You could even get it refurbished and then pay somebody to pop out the old one and put it in. It'll save you a ton of money. Sorry, I'm a real geek.
No, you're good. No, these are things we need to know because some people forget that. It's like they get this program, everyone's raving about it, but their computers, from 2001 and it's 2022, and they're like, why isn't this working? It's like, well, because your computer's too old.
Well, you also have to think about what you're using. So if you are using an actual desktop or laptop, you are going to have different functionality than you will if you're using your iPad. If you're using your iPad, you are actually running a different version of Word than you are if you're running on your desktop or your laptop. You're actually running the online version of Word if you are running on your iPad. So even if it feels fast to you and seems like it's the same, it's not actually the same. And the online only version of Word doesn't check footnotes. It's got all of these other things wrong with it that are big issues, and you'll probably blame that on the add-in that you're using versus understanding where the limitations of Word Online are. And it's just going to be a whole lot slower than if you were using the native program that was running on your desktop, because Word was made first and foremost for the desktop. So keep that in mind. I did notice a question where somebody was running an iPad Air, MacBook Air.
I was going to be like, so you mentioned iPads.
Right. So WordRake does not run on iPads right now because it does not run on an online only version of Word. It has to be the native version. It does work on Macs and on Windows, and it does go back to Windows 7. I see this person has Windows 7. Our Mac version is not Pages, it's Microsoft Word, and it is an actually recreated from the ground up version for Mac users and Mac computers. It's not something where we just imported everything that we were doing in Windows to the Mac world. And that's a rare thing that you'll find. And we're constantly updating. So you're going to get a different user experience than you would from somebody who's just porting everything over. The other thing about the license, if you want to use WordRake on several computers, our usual licensing model is one computer, one license. But if you write into support and you say, I have 2 computers, we will give you a discount on your second license, because we know that not everybody can afford to do everything. If you work for, say, a publishing company and you have 20 users and all 20 users have a desktop at the office and a laptop at home and maybe some other desktop somewhere else, then that would fall under enterprise, which is a $3,500 minimum to do enterprise. Same functionality everywhere. And with enterprise licensing, that is one user, one license, and it doesn't matter how many computers that user has. And we can do that because of the way we handle deployment, but we can't do that type of deployment on a one user at $129 scale.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just smart business model, honestly.
Right,
but still keeping it $129 a year is really, really good. You know, there are certain programs that I wish I could get because I'm like, I'm not a small business, you know, level of income, but you are charging across the board small business level income making. And so it's like, well, I can't ever use you. But
right.
with WordRake, I'm like, this just might be plausible. Yes.
You know, we strive to be affordable. We want everybody to become a better writer, and we believe that everybody can be a better writer. So it's important to us to stay within reach. So, shall I show off? Do I have 7 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's show off some of the pretty things I've made.
And we can always go a little over if you don't mind. We're not super firm on that. I think our longest show was almost 3 hours long. It was crazy.
Well, I've got a company to run, so I should...
No, we won't keep you that long, but
okay. So sometimes it's nice to just have a bit of a visual, and you know, sometimes people want to screenshot things while they're thinking about what WordRake is or what they want to do next. So WordRake is an inline editor that works in Microsoft Word or Outlook. Here's my screenshot to prove it. A lot of times people want a features list, and Kalene was kind enough to essentially read it out for us. But WordRake will help you with plain language, jargon, legalese, those introductory phrases, nominalizations, redundancies, all of those things that you wish you could edit for, but sometimes you just don't notice.
Like it says, and punctuation mistakes.
Yes.
Like right there, y'all.
That one's super important.
Big one. Big one.
All right. Well, I'm glad that I could find something else to add to that for you. So yay. Okay. So a lot of times people are like, well, you know, I could just use Word, or I'm really good at wildcards. By the way, if you like wildcards and macros, you've got to read the books from Jack Lyon, the Wildcard Cookbook and the Macro Cookbook. Have you heard of those?
Have not.
Oh my gosh, they're the best. They're tiny little books, and they're inexpensive, and they're just amazing. And they'll teach you, like, they'll give you really good use case scenarios and walk you through the wildcards and the macros that making those things that you want to do your very specific thing. So earlier I talked about if you have a made up character name and the name could have a lot of vowels or a lot of, a silent H somewhere. And every time you write it, that H moves around, or sometimes there are 3 A's and sometimes there's 2, etc. You can use wildcards to actually fix that problem and define any collection of letters within this, squiggly bracket, and etc. Anyway, that's really not what I was supposed to talk about. But the whole point of that is that some people, they see their facility in Word as replacing anything that any other program could do. And you could get close in a lot of ways, but not all the way there. And the thing that WordRake does with its inline editing is that interface just takes you so much further. So with WordRake, you work faster. You don't have to wait for and wade through recommendations. You can review everything immediately. You get the view all at once. Others will walk you through step by step, And that may not be how you want to edit, but it's because it's how the programmers thought, or how whoever it was who made the program, it was their method of thinking, and now you're stuck with it. With WordRake, you get it all at once and you can skip around, do whatever you want. Controlling what you change. We suggest improvements, but you decide what to accept or edit. We don't do any changes in the background. We don't hide anything from you. It's always your choice, and we make it very easy for you to do or undo any of that. Again, your own pace, no step-by-step stuff. And then one of the things that I really like is that we provide specific solutions for every potential issue, but we only give you one. We don't tell you, you should make this punchy. Here are 35 ways to make it punchy, only 2 of which may be relevant. Now you can guess. And we definitely see programs like that, and they pat themselves on the back for having so many options. But when you're hiring a tool, you don't really want all of those options. You want one option. And WordRake will give you the one option that is most likely to be correct. And it's that specific solution for a specific issue. There's no guesswork. You can accept or reject it. So I love that. We have 11 patents, which is, I think, pretty awesome. It's totally integrated in your workflow, and we also don't require any training. So if you buy WordRake, so say you love it and you go out and you buy it like right now, we actually have an in-application tutorial that you can launch anytime right from the ribbon. We also say if you didn't take a trial, but you went out and bought because you heard this, we have user onboarding emails that follow up with you to help you walk through. So if you're one of those people who's afraid to click buttons, we'll actually give you some of that confidence so that you do click and that you do try and you get the most out of your program. And it's a tool that's actually useful. It becomes part of your daily writing process. Sometimes people will buy a tool and for them, it's like TurboTax. They use it once a year on the thing that's really painful. And they wonder, do I need to do this all the time? Why do I have this tool? And they only think about it once it's, their license is lapsed, and then they need to do that one painful thing again. But WordRake actually isn't like that. It becomes part of your core workflow. And you just do it like you spell check things. You spell check and then you rake. Again, it's quick. You can get 250 suggestions on 25 pages in under a minute. And that's because of our patented contextual workflow. To set expectations, because I think expectations management is key. We'll give you usually 5 to 30 suggestions per page, and users usually accept 7 to 12, which I still think is a really high hit rate.
That is a good, because especially in because you probably have a lot of fiction writers, getting your thing. So some of the, for their voice or whatever is going on, they're like, no, I really just want this complicated bit. So
right,
which happens, it happens, and that's perfectly fine. But no, that is a good.
Yeah, and one of the cool things is that you don't have to, I guess it's cool in both directions. You don't have to rake everything. You can select a piece and rake only that piece. So say you've got this this prologue where you're setting up what happened in your world before the action happens, and you need that to be really tight to build your world, but you maybe don't want to use all of your voice there because you just want to get the world built. So if you want to handle that, you can just do that section over and over and over again, raking it until it's as tight as you want. But you don't have to necessarily rake all of your dialogue. So then you don't have to bother rejecting that because you just didn't ask it for feedback in the first place. So I like that.
There you go.
The other thing is that with Word's built-in editor, once you have run the editing tool, Word remembers that you've already run the editing tool, and it's deeply buried under proofing settings if you want to run it again. Whereas with WordRake, you can just rake as many times as you want by just clicking the rake button over and over again. You might get fewer and fewer suggestions, but you can rake as many times.
Closer and closer to awesome.
Right. Right. So sometimes it helps just to see where it fits in the workflow. And I like to draw things. So this is, I am assuming you can see my screen.
Yeah,
I should have checked that.
Plan,
okay, cool. Right. Yeah, we can definitely see it.
All right. So this is the editing workflow that I like to use. Of course, your editing workflow might look like a treasure map where it's like all over the place. But if you are using an ideal writing workflow, you plan, you insert WordRake into your different pieces. And again, we're not trying to get rid of humans. This is where the human review comes in. We're working with you. So you revise with WordRake, you do your human review, make sure it's all what you want. Spell check, you edit with WordRake again, you do your human review, you proofread, you do your consistency checking, and then you look at it again before you send it to your editor. You should always look at it again before you send it to your editor. And that is the way that you're going to get the most out of the tools that you're using. So you've seen all of this stuff already. Again, just more expectation setting. The trim the extra words, and this is an example. We're not going to check your spelling. If Word does it already, we're not going to duplicate what Word does. We aren't here to charge you for duplicating Word. They have people doing their stuff, and we're not going to do more of that.
I like that. But you can compare US versus UK spelling?
So that would be consistency checking, if you want to actually make that consistent. And a tool like Perfectit will help you enforce your regional spelling choices. So if you have US or UK, a mix of US or UK spelling, and you want one to be and you want it to be consistent throughout, then Perfectit would do that for you. And I would suggest running Perfectit first. However, if you, it's actually written here, we work with any form of English, and we respect your style and spelling choices. So whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. We're not going to change British, Canadian, or Australian spelling to US spelling, even though we are a US-based company. So if you've written favorite with Faourite, you're going to get edit suggestions with it spelled that way in response. If you give us something that's inconsistent, then you're going to get feedback that's also inconsistent. So if that bothers you, I suggest using a consistency checking tool like Perfectit before you run WordRake. And again, I've worked on both products. We are, as companies, we're really good friends. And so we're always watching what the other is doing and making sure that we don't step on each other's toes. And we know how we work in each other's workflows. So you can run the two together. It's not going to hurt you. And I would just add that to part of your workflow if consistency is a problem for you.
Yeah, no, these, I can definitely see how these two could definitely do work hand in hand. But yeah, you would want to run that Perfectit first, get that, kind of the unseen inconsistencies cleaned up. And then just like with your editor, and then now WordRake can work even better for you. And
absolutely.
Get all that other stuff cleaned up, and then you send it off to your human editor, and they're like, "Ooh, what is this deliciousness that I get to peruse my eyeballs with?" And then
yes.
Publishing, it's all fantastic. I love it. I love it all.
Love it. So back to the question of, well, how does WordRake compare to Word's editor? Yeah, editor is great. They've added a whole bunch of fabulous things. But if you check all of the clear and concise little checkboxes, when you take a sample of WordRake's edits and you compare it to what you're getting, of these 20 sample sentences that we used just to do the test, WordRake provided 29 edits on 20 sample sentences, and these light blue circles here, those are the only 3 that Word provided. I mean, to me, that shows a big difference in what you're getting and why it's worth adding another tool to your arsenal, even if you didn't think you needed one.
Yeah, this is like you wanted a developmental line edit and something along the line wasn't clear, and you got back this random proofread, and you're like, why are there only like 5 edits on it on every 3 pages? It's like, well.
Right. Exactly. So that's what I had. I just wanted to make sure that you got to see some of those things, and I think that this is a great illustration of the difference between the two. So I'll stop sharing and I'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, this is like hugely intense. I just want to like dig through it and like almost like just play around with it, because, well, that's my world every day. I do the edits, and yeah. So.
I like that these tools all do something different. I use ProWriting Aid a lot, and I compare it with Word's word suggestions, and I like pro writing aids suggestions more, but those are more like grammar errors. It looks like WordRake is doing something where it's taking things that are grammatically correct and making the writing tighter and more concise and more accurate. But then you got perfected. You can bring perfected in for that Chicago Manual of Style check and kind of run through it. So you've got like different layers of editing from different vantage points.
Right. And I think it's important to have developers on your team, or just any other subject matter expert who's deeply involved in the communities that you're working in, and always looking at the other tools, and really takes a collaborative approach to this world, so that you aren't getting duplicative work and we aren't just fighting with each other. If we keep our communities in mind, then we're going to get the most out of our tools and make the best possible tools for you. And there's room for every tool maker to succeed if you take that collaborative approach and you know the community that you're creating for.
Yeah. And we love Dan Human. We've had him on the show a couple times, and I like that your two programs, they just kind of help every manuscript and can work together as that team. I love it.
So, Daniel and I dance together. So we're dancing and whiskey buddies.
Yay!
See, and this is like one of the coolest things, especially like out of the indie movement that I see happening is, before, all these programs are trying to do everything. They're trying to replace everything so that you only want the one thing. But what they don't understand is, well, all the things can work together, just like with your publishing team. You have your, you as the author, you have your editor, you have your beta readers, your cover artists, all these different people working together to create this masterpiece. And now we're finally getting tools that are working together to work with us and just make the whole process a lot cleaner and a lot tighter. And I love that. Artificial intelligence is going to put us editors out of business. No, it's not, Guy. It is not going to put us out of business. Because honestly, like, if I didn't have to spend so much time, looking for, as he went through the, it's just like, if I didn't have to look for all those, delete all those, and the whole manuscripts, bleeding with all of these, unnecessary jargon, then we can get to that tighter, deeper understanding of what your pros are trying to say, what your characters are experiencing, and how we can make that even better. So no, AIs are not going to take us out of the loop yet. Hopefully, no. I'm kidding.
I love the mention of Skynet. Sometimes after a long day of editing, I do feel like one part of my face is like falling off, and I've got the exposed robot here, like the Terminator with like one eye, like. Sorry, I probably watch and read too much sci-fi. So
you gotta just keep on chugging that coffee. That's what it is. Just keep going.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ivy, for coming out, taking time out of your very busy day, and pitching us the WordRake, getting deep on it and everything that it can do. I find it to be fantastic. I definitely need to budget that in because it just looks fun. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but it looks like fun.
So much fun. And I would be happy to have many more conversations. Being with like-minded people is energizing. I was really tired before this conversation started, and now I'm ready to go.
Yes. Oh, I love to hear that.
Better than coffee. Weekend. Yes.
Woo! Okay. Someone in the Keystroke company, pin that out. We need to pin that out. The writer's journey is better than coffee. Oh, yes. Speaking of coffee, we do have Keystroke Coffee. Please go check it out, keystrokemedium.com. Get your writer's, what is it? The writer's journey. Get your
writer's
Doom.
block.
Writer's block. There it is. Get your writer's block. Get your Doom. All the good Java. And we are still working on our flash fiction. We will be getting through that, and people over in the podcast realm, I am so sorry. I am going to be getting the things up very soon. March has been an absolutely March madness for me, and I'm still catching up on all the things. Also, remember, we are on a new schedule. We're only going to be every other week, so we won't be here next Friday. No, that is not an April Fool's joke. We really will not be here next Friday. It will be the Friday after. I don't know who we have. Who do we have? I know we have someone.
Tara Allred.
There we go.
She's a writing instructor, award-winning author, and she's going to come and chat with us, and it'll be a great discussion.
All right. And with that, thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Leo, Corey, Guy, Bakus Gamer. Everybody in the live chat, Ken Brits, thank you for joining us. Be sure to check us out next week, or the week after next week. Anyway, totally screwed that. I can't say that anymore. I have to redo my outro. Check us out next time. We're going to talk about more reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium's The Writer's Journey. Peace out, you guys.